Welcome to the CEO Launch Podcast.
We are a dynamic mother-daughter duo bringing you personality, insights, and practical advice from two different generations of entrepreneurship.
We aren't just mother and daughter. We are also best friends and business partners.
I've watched my mom help thousands of entrepreneurs start the businesses of their dreams, including me. And now it's your turn.
Hey guys, welcome back to the CEO Launch. We are at episode 14. We're so excited to be here, and today's episode is one of the topics that was requested by one of our listeners. Before we start talking about that, let's just wrap up. If you have not listened to episode 13, hit pause and go back and listen to it, because we talked about the lessons that you learn from rejection. So you want to make sure you listen to that. So anyway, today's topic is one that was requested. A lot of people have been asking about Kenya and her scholarship search. So for those of you who don't know, when Kenya went to college, she went to college. It wasn't on a full scholarship, but she got 6-figure total scholarships and grants. And so people wanted to kind of know, how did she do it? But before we tell that scholarship story, I have to tell an embarrassing story first. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God.
It's not an embarrassing story, but I think it'll give you guys some background to help you see how she was able to do this. So Kenya was 3 years old, and when she was 3, that's when we first put her in school. So up until that time, my grandmother and my aunt kept her while her dad and I went to work. So when she was 3 years old, we put her in preschool. And when she went to preschool one day, she came home and said that she wasn't wearing pants anymore. And we said, what? And she said, yes, because boys wear pants and girls wear dresses, and I'm a girl, so I am not wearing pants. And I said, well, Kenya, girls wear dresses and pants. She said, no, girls wear dresses and boys wear pants. And so for an entire year, this little girl at 3 refused to wear pants. So much so that there were mornings where she and I were kind of getting into it because I had pants picked out for her. And finally her dad was like, why are you even arguing with her? Just let her wear the dress. Yeah, so for 3 years, she wore dresses because not 3 years, for a year at the age of 3. She decided that she was wearing a dress every single day. So she wore a dress every single day, Saturday, Sunday, every day of school, because girls wore dresses and boys wore pants. So I think when she turned 4, she realized that girls could wear pants, because then she started wearing pants again. But I just told that story because I just want you to know that this little girl of mine, who is now a young woman, has always been able to advocate for herself, and she has never succumbed to peer pressure as a result of.
Yeah. I'm what they call strong-willed. I think that's the PC word for it.
Yeah, definitely. She's definitely strong-willed.
I'm a little bit more evolved than the 3-year-old me, but that is a great opener to what my scholarship experience was like, because I did have to learn how to advocate for myself, and I also had to be very determined on what I wanted to achieve. So, y'all know I like setting the scene. The year was 2012. I was a senior in high school, or I was actually a rising senior in high school. This was the summer of 2012. And we had heard about, my mom and I had heard about this organization, which was helping students kind of prepare to go to college. And so I applied to get into the organization. They had this very interesting behavioral or interview section. I don't know if you remember that. Did you come to that interview with me?
Yeah, that interview was hours.
Yeah, it was a very interesting setup. So I was like, oh, this is competitive. Nobody from my county was at this interview. A lot of the people that were there went to Atlanta public schools and things like that. So I was just like, I hope I get in. I hope I qualify all of these things. And so thankfully, this particular instance, there was one qualification that I wasn't sure about that I actually met. And I called the founder of the organization and was like, hey, I read the application. I saw this qualification. I just want to know, I kind of fit. Do you think that I could join your program? And he was just like, yeah, go ahead, apply. We'll see what you like. And then if we like you, then you could join the program. I was like, okay. So I joined, I got in. And when I got in, what I quickly learned was I was behind. And I was just like, huh? I had taken my SAT scores. I had been on college campuses since the 7th or 8th grade. I had my college list. I knew where I was going. I knew my major, all of these things. My future was planned, but I was behind when it came to scholarships. I had never thought about scholarships up until getting into that program. And the moment that we had a lesson about scholarships, I was on it, on it. Kid you not. I think we had the lesson in November. I started looking for scholarships. I applied to my first scholarship in December, and it was late.
I think it might have been sooner than that, but yeah, you definitely were on it.
No, it was December. I remember because it was right before Christmas break. Because I was taking those college classes, I only had my finals for my one high school class that I was taking. And so I had a bunch of free time to kind of get everything together and send it in the scholarship. When we learned about it, I probably had about 2 weeks. So it wasn't November 1st. It was November 15th, and I had to turn it in December 5th, something like that. So was really on it, started doing a bunch of research and just trying to figure out I have to apply to every scholarship ever known to man because I was behind and I don't like being behind. I know on the last episode we were talking about rejection, you be like, I'm an overachiever. Me too. So I was just I don't like being in last place. I didn't like it. So the first thing that I did was research. Research is so important to everything that you do, whether you are buying a car or trying to figure out how to go to college or starting a business, you need to research. And so I researched as much as I could, and then I started asking for help. So it wasn't just that I was looking at my research, I was using the resources around me. So I was asking. Now I knew to ask my guidance counselor, what scholarships are available in the little county? I had a spreadsheet. We love spreadsheets.
We love Excel.
And so I had my spreadsheet and I had all of the scholarships that I was eligible for, all of the things that they require, the due days where I needed to mail them. This is also back in the day when you couldn't submit everything online. Some of them I did have to mail them in, had to get postage.
That was my job. I paid for the stamps.
Listen, I had me a little team, okay? I had to write a bunch of essays. So one of my aunts was reading my essays. You were my supplier, so you got me all the paper and pens and stamps and envelopes and all of those things.
And transcripts.
All of those things in between just to kind of start this assembly line of scholarships. So I would write the essays and see what they were looking for. And I would do my research on who the organization was. Okay, they don't really want to know my whole life story. They just want to know that I'm really good at school. So let me just kind of tell them about how awesome of a student I was. And so I figured out how to tell my story and how to market myself. That was my very early moments of figuring out how to market myself to other people. And it worked. And I was so surprised. It worked. I got my first scholarship notification, I think in January.
And they just started rolling in after that.
Now, I will say, and I always preface this with people when it comes to scholarship, I was targeted in some instances. So I tried to do either large scholarships that were specific to minority students and minority achievement, because I just didn't want to be a small fish in a huge pond. That just wasn't going to go for me. And then I would do smaller local scholarships, which a lot of people sleep on because the local scholarships are a lot less competitive and they're still good amounts of money. You can get a couple $1,000s from a local charity. That's a good chunk of some tuition,
It just really boils down to they really all add up.
Right.
When you throw it into the pot. So one thing that I want to add, this was our motivator. So we had a big whiteboard in our living room. And every time Kenya got a scholarship, we wrote on the whiteboard which scholarship it was and how much it was. And we had a running tally because this is the part of the story that she didn't tell you. Howard was her dream school. And I was not going to stop her from going to Howard. I told her, you know, if you get the money to go, because you know your mama didn't save any money. We just been living. So if you get enough money to go to Howard, you can definitely go. And so that was the goal. It was like we wanted to make sure that she had enough money to be able to go to Howard, because two things that I didn't want is I didn't want her to go into student loan debt like I did. So you can't go into debt, go into school. You got to make sure. So that whiteboard was a motivator, because when the letters would come or the emails would come, you know, we would run to the whiteboard to add, like, how much more do we have?
And my friends would come over and be like, oh, you got another one. I was like, yep, I sure did. And that was another big piece, because I was so focused on getting to Howard that my senior year is somewhat of a blur to me. I'm one of those people that did not peak in high school, so it was just like high school, I was so over it. I was over it in the 10th grade. I was like, are we done? Are we finished? I can do without the rest of this. So it was like my senior year of high school, I made the very conscious decision that I did not want to go to high school anymore, and I only took one high school class my senior year of high school, and that was econ, and that was only because I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to pass a college level econ class. Now that I had taken econ, I could have took that class. But back then, I was a little scared. And so it was like I had to make sacrifices I wasn't a partier. You know, I wasn't going out with my friends. I wasn't doing a whole lot of extra stuff. I still have memories from my senior year, and I was still able to make time for my friends, but I still prioritized my ultimate vision, and that was to go to Howard. And on the topic of rejection, the one big scholarship that I really wanted and that I didn't get was the Gates scholarship. And I thought because I didn't get Gates that I wasn't going to be able to go to school. Like, I was like, dang, I'm going to be stuck at State. Like, I ain't want to go to State. I don't have nothing against Georgia State. I just really want to go to Howard. And so I was just like, man, like, I can't believe this. And you was just like, listen, I don't care what we got to do. You going to go to Howard. Just wait on it and you will be able to go.
And just keep working. But you know what? One of the things that I realized that process, what it did was it taught you a lot about time management. I know you talked about being able to market yourself, but you also learned a lot about time management because, again, another piece that she didn't share is she was taking all college classes and she was working at my office. So she would leave college and she came into the office and she was like my, not even administrative assistant. She was doing QuickBooks.
Yeah, I was doing bookkeeping.
So she had a job. She had college courses and you got all A's in your college courses, but it was really about being really focused on what it is that you want and going for it. So what's the advice that you have for, let's say, high school students, and then give some advice to the parents?
For high school students, I would say you have to figure out what you want. I know just scientifically as a teenager, there are a lot of things that are in your face that are really tempting for right now. But if you want something that's bigger than the things that you see in this moment, there are going to be things that you have to sacrifice. And you just have to be okay with that. Make the sacrifices for the bigger rewards. For their parents, start having these conversations early. I was fortunate, so fortunate in being able to get the scholarships that I got to go to the school of my dreams, starting so last minute. But man, if I had started thinking about this in like 9th grade or even 8th grade, it would have been over for everybody. Period. I'm just kidding.
I want to say something though, Kenya. You talk about being behind, and I know that your scholarship search was a little bit behind, but I want to take some of that off and say, but you were strategic. And I think that, you know, we have been planning for you to go to college since elementary school,
right,
when you were in the gifted program and when you got in the Duke Tip program and all of those different things. And so we done all the things that needed to be done. So even though you didn't start searching for scholarships until senior year, you were preparing to be scholarship ready your entire life. Because if you were really behind, you wouldn't have had nothing to put on the application.
That's true. That is very true. So I'll do an asterisk. I wasn't behind as far as my achievements, I just was a little behind in my timeline. The project was a little bit delayed with my search.
Right. So we still got the desired results out of that story. So let's jump to our takeaways.
I would definitely say, now that I'm an adult, reflecting on that experience, what I recognize that the scholarship process taught me was being able to tell my story. Not even just market my story, but to be able to communicate my story to multiple audiences. And that's something that I think is not something that everybody can do immediately and naturally. So I'm very proud of myself at such a young age that I was able to kind of understand what I wanted my voice to be in that moment and let other people in on the things that I knew and felt about myself. So I think that was a really big takeaway. And I think that's something for business owners, for parents, and everybody in between, know how to tell your story, but make sure you're telling the story that you want to be retold. That's such an important piece of it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think another takeaway is the importance of being able to advocate for yourself and advocate for the things that you believe in and the visions that you have and the goals that you set. Advocating for yourself is huge.
Because I could have given up, when I didn't get the big scholarship instead of looking for the little fish. And because I didn't give up, I was able to get to the ultimate goal. So it's just like when you have your eyes on the prize, it really does make such a difference in how you do things. And I think the third takeaway is just making sure that you make time for things that are important to you. Like a lot of people will say that certain things are important to them, but they don't make time for it. So it's like if you want to go to a particular school, you need to make sure that you're putting in the work to make sure that you qualify to go to that school and that you are a superb student when you go to that school. So same thing in business. If you want to be a 6-figure company, you need to start operating and putting in time like you want to be 6 figures.
Right. You can't be 6-figure company with $2 work ethic. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So I definitely think those are very, very important things that parents can learn, that teens who are preparing to go to school can learn, and that business owners can learn. Scholarships has been a transferable lesson in many parts of my life, so I do hope that it transfers to other people's lives as well.
Yes. So thank you guys for being with us again today. Next week, we are going to talk about some life lessons, share some more of those young Kenya stories. So we're going to talk about some life lessons. If you haven't already joined our online community, the Efficient CEO Movement on Facebook, please do. We'd love to have you there where we will continue the conversation.
And you can follow us on social media at the CEO Launch.
See you next week.
And don't forget to take off.
This is a Clearwood production.